Hello students, today we would be doing SBQ Skills on Comparison. Comparing sources, revision for secondary school work. First, we need to identify the question types. The question types tell us whether we need to answer both similarities and difference, meaning one paragraph for similarity and one paragraph for difference, or we answer just similarities, one paragraph for similarity, the second paragraph for similarity, or just difference. This is important because it will guide us to know how to answer the question. First thing we do is we need to analyze the question. What does the question require us to do? We need to understand the issue or topic. Normally the issue or topic is given in the provenance. If it is not given in the provenance, we look at the source content. 3. We identify the criteria for making that comparison. We select the evidence, and last but not least, we explain how similar or different are the sources. So we look for a common criteria. So we need to know what is common before we state similarities and differences in the sources. As always, we look at first the provenance, second the source content, and we look at the purpose, which we will cover in Sec 2, Sec 3, and of course in Sec 4. Let's look at the question given to us today. Study sources A and B. And the question is, how different are sources A and B? Explain your answer. 6 marks. So we need to know what the question requires, so we can identify how different are sources A and B. Type of questions require one paragraph for difference and one paragraph for similarities. How different questions require one paragraph for difference and one paragraph for similarities. Let's look at the source which is given to us, a source that we have done before. So the provenance basically tells me that it is a historian's account, meaning a historian who has studied about the past, and that historian is writing a book or an article. In this case, it's a book. What's it about? It's about the conditions in Singapore. Could be living conditions, could be just conditions. And what is the time frame? It is the mid-19th century. Right? So I know that the author is a historian talking about the conditions in Singapore in the mid-19th century. So let's read the source. And this written source is known as the source content. What does the source tell us? Despite its lovely setting and orderly planning, despite indicates that in spite of its lovely setting and orderly planning, so this shows that Singapore had a lovely setting, and had orderly planning. So this is a compliment, right? This is positive. But despite this, many parts of Singapore was unsightly. Why? Because the main streets frequently flooded at high tide, and the main streets were lit up by feeble coconut oil lamps. The city's rubbish refuse was thrown into swamps, and the roads were littered with garbage. Singapore was full of pollution and stench. So, apart from this one sentence that is complimenting Singapore, the rest of the source paints Singapore in a negative light. Therefore, the living conditions or conditions in Singapore in the mid-19th century was unsightly. So that's the first source. The second source, we look at the provenance. The provenance is from a traveler's account, meaning this is a eyewitness testimony of Singapore, of the condition of Singapore, right, in the 1870s. So we have similarity because this is also written in the 19th century. This is also written in the mid-19th century. So there are similarities. There are similarities because this talks about, source A talks about conditions, and source B talks about conditions as well. There is differences because one is a historian's account who studied history and writes about it, but here it was a eyewitness account. So there are differences in the author. So let's read source B. Singapore is certainly the most well-planned city I have ever seen. It is like a big desk full of drawers and pigeonholes where everything has its place. There is a remarkable absence of tumble-down buildings, old buildings, disused buildings. Some of the Chinese shops and dwellings of rich merchants were quite elaborately decorated at the front. All of this gives a picture of tasty and luxurious air to the whole place. So you can see that source B, it is a positive and complimentary account of Singapore in the 1870s. So, just by reading the sources, you can see that one source is negative and one source is positive. Right? So, let's group the points that we have just discussed, which we will do together as students. So, this is what it will look like when you are analyzing sources. You will identify the author, the topic, the time. So we do the same thing here. The author, the topic is not given here, but it is given in the source content. And the time. So once you have done that, let's see how are they similar, in what way, and how are they different. You can see that source A and source B are different because source A has mostly negative things to talk about the conditions of life in Singapore in the mid-19th century. It is negative. All of the evidence is here. So it is, the point is Singapore is unsightly, it is polluted, and the evidence is copied from the source. Main streets flooded at high tide, lit by feeble coconut oil lamps, road littered with garbage, pollution and stench. This is all evidence that tells us that This is a negative picture of Singapore in the mid-19th century. Is there anything positive from source A? Yes, only one sentence. Its lovely setting and orderly planning. This is the only thing positive that is said. Let's look at source B, right? So source A is wholly negative, mostly 99%, and source B is 100% positive. So in terms of differences, one is negative, one is positive, and the evidence is here in the source content. And this is positive and the evidence is here in the source content. So this is all the evidence, right? So after we have identified the positive, the negative, and also the evidence, right, we need to structure and construct an answer. Okay, let's look at what is required. So we know that the question type, how different are sources A and B, require us to have two paragraphs. The first paragraph will be about differences, and the second paragraph is about similarities. First thing we need to do is to answer the question. And how do we answer the question? We answer the question by saying sources A and B are different. Sources A and B are different. So the first sentence should be sources A and B are different. For similarities, it's the same. Sources A and B are similar. Then we would use the point, the evidence, the explanation, and the link to answer the question. We will use the points, the evidence, our explanation, and the link to answer the question. Let's look at some sample model answers. So let's answer the question. Sources A and B are different in showing the living conditions in early Singapore. In early Singapore, right? So this is the point. They are different. The evidence is the main streets are frequently flooded, right? And we copy and paste from source A the evidence. However, another word you can use is but. These two words will show contrast. That means it shows a disagreement. So let's look at however source B tells us that there is a remarkable absence of tumble down buildings. All this gives us a picture of tasty and luxurious air to the whole place. So this is a contrast, right? This shows that the two sources are different. But after quoting the evidence from the source, we need to explain. Remember, students, you get your marks because you explain. If you do not explain, you will not get your marks. So how do we explain? Source A tells me that Singapore was unkempt and dirty city with poor planning, city maintenance and design. However, source B shows that Singapore was a very well organized city with very clean and good living conditions. So this is an explanation. Remember, use your own words. Do not use the same words as in the source. Do not copy the same words from the source. Need to use your own words. And finally, we link the paragraph and end the paragraph by showing hence, therefore, as such, both sources are different, T, right, as they show the different living conditions in Singapore. So this is a model answer for answer about difference, but the format is the same. Is the format for similarities. So it is exactly the same as how we answer differences, except that the focus is now on similarities. So we answer sources A and B are similar in showing what? The topic is living conditions in early Singapore. The evidence is as seen from source A, right, as seen from source A while in source B. So this shows a similarity. While in source B, right, as seen from source A, its lovely setting and orderly planning, while in source B, Singapore is certainly the most well-planned city I have ever seen, right? So you can explain it by saying both source A and B agree that the city was well planned and organized. It was systematic and orderly. The link. Hence, both sources are similar in showing that the living conditions in Singapore were good and well structured. Students, congratulations. We have answered a model answer for similarity, for differences, one paragraph, and for similarities. Always remember to answer what the question requires. Always give two paragraphs or comparisons based on the information that you find in the source. Students, although there were some typographical errors in the PowerPoint slides, I hope that you can use these slides to revise and also to construct proper answers according to the format as required for your source-based skills on comparisons. Thank you and have a nice day. Goodbye.